Hey, this is Kiz from Hip Hop Heals UK, and we are Glow with the Flow podcast. We're looking at the therapeutic potential of hip hop and spreading how to evaluate and spread its impact. So today we are in Chamber 31, and our wise sage from the world of hip hop and drill is based in Brighton, and he has many roles. So, guest, please introduce your name and what you do. Tell us what you do.
So I'm Dr. Lambros Fatsis, but really I'm just Lambros, and I'm currently enjoying the lush sunshine down here in Brighton. But when I don't do that, I guess I'm an academic for my sins, and I specialise on the racialised criminalisation of black musics, from African drumming to rap music, and particularly drill today.
Thank you. How did you come to this work?
Well, I guess as a music head, primarily, and a reggae DJ, who was, I guess, listening to music all the time and enjoying it, and struggled to understand why, I guess, the music I love, live with, and live for, has been historically treated by white mainstream culture as little more than mere entertainment. When for me it was really a consciousness raising thing. So it was something. It was a mode through which thinking, politics, culture, community, spirituality come alive and come together, and do so in ways that really urge us to rethink how we think about what counts as thinking, what counts as public life, what is culture, what is politics, how do we make the world? Can we think and live in the world with and through music? So these were the questions that really came alive. So I decided to do a PhD about it. And as I was writing, the whole criminalization of UK grime music started becoming a big thing. So I started thinking, okay, I really need to start addressing that specifically. So then I started writing about grime, and then when that became, I guess, less of a worry for the legal penal system, and drill marched into the scene, I just continued to do that work, to this day. So I guess it was primarily the policing against grime initially, and the current policing against drill that really are at the heart of my academic, I guess, and more activist work, I guess, too.
Thank you. Incredible. What do you enjoy most about your job?
Well, I mean, in terms of the day job, I guess teaching wise, it's about meeting and interacting with hundreds of young people, my students, every year, and getting excited as well as getting them excited to discuss issues like policing, police racism, through the lens of rap, and through the lens of forms of rap subgenres that they're familiar with, that they very rarely think of as learning content. So what I try to do in my teaching is essentially discuss things that are, I guess, that the students have enrolled in degrees to learn more about, but through the music they listen. That being primarily sort of rap and various rap subgenres, with drill being the main focus. And research-wise, I guess what I really enjoy doing is the ability to tell a story about things that I know a lot about, and share those and distribute those, as well as use those as information and knowledge that I can then mobilize against this criminalizing trend that we see so much of in relation to drill. So using my research in court, for example, as evidence for the defense, in order to show how prosecuting rap music is just uninformed, factually inaccurate, as well as, of course, ethically and politically dubious too.
I'm thinking about how in universities people talk about these things, but at a distance. And I'm thinking about how the colonization of knowledge makes it okay for a dominant force to justify their exclusion of another underground subgroup or, disenfranchised group or a threat. But anyway, more on that later. What are the things that how do you know a good therapeutic workshop or relationship has happened or been built? So you don't do workshops so much, but you work in a therapeutic helping capacity as a professional. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So there's two things that you can bring here. Your work as a instructor, an educator, an orator, somebody who's a classroom stalwart. You're using pedagogy to transmit university, science, basically, isn't it? Criminology through the lens of a important new subgenre in hip hop, drill. So you could talk about how you manifest positive therapeutic relationships, or maybe not positive therapeutic relationships in your classroom with your students, so that it's safe to talk about these things. And you could also talk about your other role, which you mentioned earlier, but would you like to tell everybody now with the courts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me it would be, healing as a political objective.
Oh,
You
sorry.
know,
Could you tell
yeah,
us about your work in the courts?
yes, sure. So in terms of the work in courts, what I do is act as an expert witness for the defense in cases that rely on, as well as involve, drill lyrics as evidence, with many quotation marks, because it's not evidence of criminal wrongdoing. So what I do is essentially argue against the prosecution case that drill is basically little more than autobiographical confession, or um, essentially a testimony of criminal wrongdoing. And I guess where healing comes part of it is because it attacks racist mythologies that link blackness to criminality, and do so through music. So music becoming an embodiment of those racist myths. And doing so in court in order to restore justice, ultimately. Restore justice, as well as restore the dignity of the defendants, as well as the communities that they have grown in, and also, hone their craft and skills as rappers as well. So it's a two-way process. One is negative, which is trying to attack the state that attacks rappers, and the other is to build a positive relationship with defendants, as well as lawyers, solicitors, and barristers who I work with, in order to embolden them to see themselves as artists, and see themselves as people who deserve justice, and who deserve to be heard, as people who have something to say about their reality, and as people who have something to say in the critique of the state, and in doing so, this being very, very cathartic, among other things. So I think it's healing in a psychological, in a political, in a social, and in a cultural sense, and I see all of those things connected. As I'm sure most hip hop fans and rap heads would as well. That I don't think anyone would distinguish between those aspects of
Mm.
as healing practice, as community practice, as social, cultural, and political practice. as well as being musical, as well as being creative, as well as being imaginative and literary, and all of those things we love about rap and hip hop.
Yeah, thank you. So, how do you know a good therapeutic workshop, relationship, lesson, seminar, whatever you want to insert there in terms of your work? How do you know that's happened well? What are the indicators to you?
I think too. I mean, I would probably quote Bob Marley here from Trench Sound Rock, in the sense that when music hits, you feel no pain, right? So
Yeah.
so so I think if we broaden that to to the social context of no pain, as in no injustice, uh, no racism as an oppressive ideology, um, and and state of being in the world. I think that's how when you try to um, you know bring back justice in an unjust world, through whatever interventions and relationships you have. So I think it happens on multiple levels, starting with connection, right? Connection through music, um, and what you do with that, right? So what you do with that in terms of music being as the glue of that relationship you forge
Yeah.
with those who work with it, as well as using music as a weapon against those who try to suppress it. So I think when it works, when I will controversially say that when it works when the state and the authorities are trying to clamp it down,
Yeah.
because it means that there's a message there that is just deeply uncomfortable, as an embodiment of criticism, as an embodiment of difference, as an embodiment of disorder, um, and then you're hitting the right button, and siding with those who hit the right button. So I think that's how such a relationship works, when you approach people and who are involved in that music, as well as the culture itself, with respect, and with um I guess with an ethical mindset, about what is just and what is not just. So healing to the person, and successful for the person who feels restored and feels seen, other than through the eyes of a racialized stereotype. I think that's particularly important. And then what that means more broadly as a social relationship, right? So when those things work and those relationships work, when you change attitudes and opinions, or try to, and you offer a perspective that is usually silenced, and using whatever power you have, institutional or otherwise, to do that, not to credentialize yourself or anything of that sort, but rather use your platform and your power, institutional or otherwise, to alert people to the realities of others, and bring their stories in, and amplify the voice, and side with them when the voice is being essentially silenced and censored. I don't know if that makes any sense, if you want me to speak
Yeah,
more specifically.
makes a lot of sense to me. I think we're talking about sort of on a massive level about the relationships that people have with the state and the way the systems of the state work to maintain dominance, authority, and power. And the dregs of empire are still blossoming, I'd say. So we're thinking about the macro here, which is really interesting. So going down from that to a human perspective, down to the micro, what are the things that you have to do to make sure one of your lectures or a workshop webinar goes well from a practitioner point of view when you're talking about these complex and sometimes harrowing ideas? What helps ensure good practice?
I think the first thing that I seem to rely on is actually my own passion for it and letting that show,
Yeah.
to bring others in. So not go in with a, I don't know, staged kind of performance of any sort, but literally just show, why this is important to you, so that other people can relate to that and perhaps open up. Because part of the problem, particularly in academic settings, is that the students might see you as an authority figure, regardless of how you present yourself. And you try to break those bonds and say, look, what we're actually going to do here is think with music about the things that you've come to the university to learn, right? And let's do this through rap. Let's do this through hip hop. And let's do this in a way that empowers both our relationship as well as yourselves to think differently, right? So if you're at home and you're listening to rappers, or if you go to gigs, or if you're rapping yourselves, to see yourselves as creators of knowledge, to see yourselves as creators of thinking, to see yourselves as, valuable human beings, rather than thinking of themselves as, oh, I'm engaging with an art form that is disrespected, devalued, and actually is translated and transformed into evidence of criminal wrongdoing in court. So I think that emotional connection between instructors, facilitators, teachers, and learners is one of participation, really, and sharing that enthusiasm that is there, if it is there. And I think that's always positive. So show your passion, show your human side, let others come in with their own stories, empower them in doing so, and keep an open mind by actually letting the music speak and do that healing, from a neurological to a social level. Because I think when you play music in such a setting, you create a shared experience. People feel differently. People react to each other differently. People relax. And then when you start talking about the message of such music, it becomes a different thing once you've all relaxed and start relating to the music and to each other. So I think that's what I would regard as a successful way of approaching such a relationship or a session, to become human and to show, one's passion and interest in why this matters. So I think that is absolutely vital in creating
Thank
that
you.
strong bond.
Thinking about safety now, what makes your sessions safe for you to deliver and for participants to take part? And that could be what makes the relationship safe when you're working with people in court, defending them when they've been accused of criminal acts through their drill, lyricism. So what makes your workshops or relationships safe for you to deliver or for people to take part?
I mean, that's a tricky one because it plays out differently in different contexts. So in the classroom,
Yeah.
I would say that you have to lose the power that you're given, institutionally and otherwise. So to relate to others not through fancy titles and degrees and all those trappings of institutional power. So to speak to others and relate to others and let others relate to you on a human level, rather than speaking as an expert, or I don't know, or a strict disciplinarian teacher, but really create a space for open dialogue and for participation, and do so genuinely. So I think that would be the classroom bit. So to make it a safe place for people to speak their minds, without fear of intimidation or saying something wrong, or not being familiar with the jargon, or being afraid to confide to either their peers or indeed, this weird person that's standing, across the room, depending on the size and the space of the classroom and so on. Oddly enough, in the courtroom, it's the reverse, in the sense that what you do use there is actually your institutional power and the power of your credentials in order to shut down the power of the state in its effort to racially criminalize defendants. So oddly enough, you're trying to create a very charged and adversarial space, which is already what the courtroom is. But in order to defend, the person that is sitting at the defendant's seat. So it's almost like a knowing game where you try to communicate to your defendant that, look, I'm here for you, passionately, compassionately, but I have to play this role in order to help you, because that's the only way that the judges and the lawyers will respond, which is if I play up my power and knowledge and expertise against the fanciful arguments that they're trying to make against you to put you in jail. So it's a very strange one, what I just said, and I understand the contradictions in that. But you try to make someone safe by actually using your power in that sense, which might sound counterproductive, and that invites a lot of thinking as to why we claim to do justice that way, right? And if that is justice at all, when somebody is accused of something and enters such a violent, harmful environment where people are essentially attacking each other, right?
Okay, so you're using your expertise and privilege and power that's brought about your role as an academic in that sort of defensive, supportive sense. So that helps to
because
create
of course you
safety
can't
for
communicate directly with a defendant. So what you try to do is essentially lessen the power of those who bring charges against the defendant. Essentially to say to cops and prosecutors, well, how on earth are you have such opinions about something that you know so precious little? Or how do you publish in that? Do you have work in peer-reviewed journals? Are you an expert in rap culture? Are you an expert in Black youth culture? So then how is it that you interpret this material? You can't, because you don't know the artistic conventions that inform it. Therefore, you cannot pass judgment on those things because they are not, they're not evidence. They are artistic artifacts which you cannot understand because you do not have the knowledge of. So that's essentially, the nutshell of the arguments that we bring against the prosecution. And sometimes you can see, actually, although again you don't have direct communication with the defendant, you can see the eye-to-eye contact of them feeling, okay, someone's fighting my case here. Someone's trying to get me out of trouble. Rather than entering an environment where your very words are used against you in a forensic manner, as like you might rap something that might have a real world resonance and it's used against you as if it is concrete evidence or wrongdoing, which is a harrowing experience for defendants.
Thank you. So thinking now about external factors that could help you deliver a good therapeutic hip-hop based relationship or facilitating a good therapeutic drill lecture, what are the external factors to help you do that, delivering a good therapeutic session?
Well, I think recognition that this activity matters, actually. I think that would be the most important thing, and I also see it in workshops in a youth music organization that I'm a trustee of, which is Audio Active here in Brighton, which is to really convince people that this matters as an art form, that this matters as a platform that young people use to voice how they feel, how they think, what the place in the world is, what the place in the world should be, what they want to do, who they want to become. So I think that is probably the key for me, recognition that this matters. that it is not irrelevant. It is not noise to be eliminated. It's not an assault on, you know, what are deemed respectable cultural values or whatever. But that this has to be recognized as material that is worthy of our attention, and empower people to use it rather than feel guilty, of engaging with such material. Which is very difficult to do, of course, in an institutional setting, particularly that is driven by agendas that make assumptions and assessments of what matters in terms of metrics and quantity, how much of this and how much of that, rather than what is the relationship we're trying to forge here. Right?
Thank you.
What social as well as psychological ills are we trying to cure and address?
Okay. So what are the barriers that might stop you from offering a good session?
Well,
a good therapeutic
I think intervention. So in an academic setting, intervention from the university as to, what education should look like, rather than how you want to do it. And I think in a more community-based setting, like, for example, the rap workshops at Audioactive and many other places, and indeed, many of the workshops that you run, actually intervention from the state. So, for example, to not have youth offending teams breathing down your neck, not to have the Home Office control your funding, not to have the state monitoring what it is that you do. So safety from harm that is generated by state-sanctioned practices. Young people, even, although they know that these are safe spaces where they can speak their minds, they still self-censor, and you can see that. And I'm sure you have experienced that as well. Probably, through your work and your workshops, but I see that very strongly, and I'm genuinely distressed by that.
Okay, so what would you say, going back to when you started this work, you would have liked to have done differently in terms of measuring impact? So looking back to when you began this work, can you tell us one or two things that would have helped you measure the impact of your work better or more easily?
I guess get more, written testimonies by people who have attended sessions, as well as maybe encourage them to produce things. So be they lyrics or perhaps a presentation or a blog article or a poster, or, make an event out of that. Make an event out of something or a performance out of something to show that this has made a difference to people's lives. And when I say make a performance, not me doing it, but me organizing and creating the space for that to happen, so that students can showcase, what they have learned through essentially using rap and hip hop as a tool for learning, as a tool for education, as a form of pedagogy. How has it empowered them? What can it lead to? And then show that to the world and say, look, here's an exhibition of what, class of May 2023 has produced as material, using rap as knowledge, and using rap as storytelling, and as storytelling that tries to really restore the humanity of those people.
In a workshop series, it could be a good idea to evaluate by making a rap or a poster or a piece of art or creative output that matches the rest of the workshop series. So you're not getting to the end and going, we've done this amazing painting, dancing, singing, rapping, vibing, creating, but now fill in a survey. You could say, make a rap about what you've done, dance about what you've done, sing about what you've done, do some graph, and then explain to us through that piece of work. Lambros, that might be the game changer for my practice that I've heard so far. Thank you for the amazing insight. So thinking about guidance now from other people, from yourself, from institutions, whatever, what guidance do you wish you had before starting to help improve your evaluation skills?
That's going to sound controversial, but I think to ignore what other people do and what institutional pressures there are. So if it's management or whoever tries to dictate what you do, tell you to do, to just ignore that and literally go with what makes sense to you and what does justice to what you want to do. So if the institution's logic is, well, how can we make this, I don't know, profitable, or how can we demonstrate this or that, what we need to think is that actually is counterproductive and harmful to the spirit of what we're trying to do. So if it is harmful to the spirit that we're trying to do, we do not follow that advice. So essentially, it's going with your gut and going with your passion and going with what I guess in the context of our conversation, in what rap culture as political, educational, psychological practice tells us, and go with that. Go with the teachings, I guess, of rap and hip hop culture rather than what the institution wants out of that setting. So ultimately, abuse the hospitality of that institutional setting in order to do what rap does best.
Radical, man. That's totally rad, dude. So basically, what happens if you get the sack, though? If you just keep ignoring and doing your own counter sort of activism
Well, I
against the
think,
institution that we're being paid?
good point. I think most of them would feel reluctant to do that because students would simply love it. And that's what happens. So then you get actually really good module evaluations, which is all they look at. So while they might completely loathe what you do in the classroom, the students love it. So that means high student satisfaction. So it's very difficult for them then to fire you. And even if they do, at least you've done the right thing, and that students know that, and you forged a meaningful relationship, and they probably will have your back.
So, Lambros, I now hereby appoint you the Dean, the Provost of the University of Hip Hop Heels.
Yay!
So, could we just take you as a leader and we'll just step into your rhythm and flow, please? So, what 5 qualities do you need to do therapeutic hip hop practice?
Right. First, use your passion for rap culture. Second, convince others that this matters. 3, ignore those who don't think it matters. 4, create a community across institutions of like-minded people who think that this matters. And 5, fight the power.
You are an absolute legend, Lambros. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great thinking about these things in terms of how you set up this practice on a sort of macro institutional systems level, and where we fit as helpers on the ground in the micro relationships and in the micro interactions that we have, right down into the classroom, the one-to-one when you're talking to a student about a political theme that comes up in a lyric, a drill lyric, right up to when you're talking to the state, the criminal justice system, about why they should not penalize us for making the music we love and that we do as a heartbeat in our beings. So this podcast is contributing to the research in the field of hip hop therapy and therapeutic hip hop. The Cumin Network helped to put this together through a little research bursary, and Cumin stands for Contemporary Urban Music for Inclusion. So we'll be working out what the themes are for evaluation impact around hip hop and hip hop's healing powers. So you'll find more info at hiphophealsuk.org, and all of our podcasts and our webinars, all our training videos are over on our YouTube page, which you can find at Hip Hop Heals UK. Thanks, Lambros. Have a wicked day, and can't wait to come down and visit in Brighton and check out what's going on.
It's a pleasure. You too.